we given some values for them now, sir.
Yes, yeah. So we
Can
we
you
started the
open that
programming.
and
Sorry.
sir? Can you ante can you recap it?
I'll do that. That's what I'm doing. So
Okay.
in the I started with a single one-line printf statements, right? One-line printf code. So this is the program I wrote in the morning session today. So I will write the same program again for you guys also. Don't worry. So let me remove everything. So what did I do? We started with single printf, and then we'll wrote
Sir, has the
simple.
font size been changed?
Sorry.
Has the font size been changed? I don't
Yes.
see
Yeah,
any.
why we do you have an issue with that?
Yeah, I have an issue.
What, you are not able to see it, or it's
No, sir, not while during the live class, but while I'm watching the recordings on my mobile, they are quite small, you see.
because your mobile screen is small? Now what can you do?
Even on the laptops, please increase it.
See, because if I increase the font size, it will be difficult for me to follow. Then after that, if we make it really big, see, it's like
24,
it looks
24, 24 might be good, you see.
okay. Let's see. Okay, okay, is that fine?
Ah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, good. So yeah, so just to recap, so we started the programming thing with this single one-line statements, printf statements, but then we found out that these statements are not. I mean, you can't do much with your programming language, or you can't write any good efficient program by just having a printf statement with you, right? So then what we did was I explained you how you can use how you can compute simple expressions. For example, you can compute this, you can compute one more expression using your program, and then if you want to print the output of the expressions, you have to use something called a percentile d. So this expression gets mapped to this, and this expression gets mapped to this percentile d, and then yeah, so this is like the is a printf, but now it is doing some computations as well. So this is where we started the previous lecture, and then what I told is, instead of writing these numbers directly as a part of the program text itself, then I told you that we can use variables, right, to store these numbers. So I can use the variables int x and int y to store the same numbers, and then instead of using the numbers as the numbers themselves in the expressions, I could use the variables directly. So what is the benefit of this? Because later on, if I want to use the same expression but for a different set of numbers, all that I have to do is I have to change the contents of the variable. Now all that I have to change is, let's say now I want to do 67, and then z equals to 9. So then the same expression will be evaluated now for 45, 67, and 9, if I just change the contents of x, y, and z. What was a variable? Variable was just just an allocation space which I created in my program's memory for me to put data and read data from there. So this is a recap of previous lecture. Did you get it? Whoever was asking me the question.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
in the previous lecture, we saw that like an int variable will have 4 bytes of
Same
memory allocated to it,
space.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we store a value in it which doesn't occupy the complete 4 bytes, it
Mhm.
occupies say 1 byte. What
Mhm.
happens to the rest of the 3 bytes? Do they just get wasted?
Zero. They get wasted and zeros will be placed there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So today that's the recap of previous lecture. Yeah. Okay. That's it then. So today what we will do is we will study. So we studied variables from a storage perspective last time, right? We said there is a character type of variable. We have characters, then we have integers, and then we have floats, right?
Float, long.
Now, I told that something called a float, right? Last time, I think I
Yes,
told.
sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah. So then, what I told last time is these things, right? This, what is the type of a variable? These types are also called. Another word for this is called data types. Just remember this word, data type. Data type means what is the type of the variable. For example, for in this case, the data type of x is int, the data type of y is int, and the data type of z is int. It might as well be character. So then you would say the data type of Z is characters. So now, yes, in the last lecture, I told you what is the use of these different types. Can't I just work with a single type? I can work with single types, but then certain types give me certain functionalities. For example, my character is 1 byte long, right? 1 byte wide. So I can, without wasting any memory, if I know that all my data, all the expressions in my program that I will be evaluating, they will give me data within the range of 0 to like 255. So that means this is the range of my output. So I could use a character variable to store that output, because I know my number range is not going to get beyond this, beyond 256 or beyond 255, because if I start from 0 to 255. But if your program creates output of, if your program evaluates expressions whose value comes out to be much bigger than 256, then what happens? You cannot use the character variables, right? You cannot use the character variable for storing the output. In that case, you have to go for a bigger sized variable, which would be in that case an integer. Yes, so this is what we ended on last time. But now apart from the storage, there is one more aspect of variables which has to do with its type. Yeah, so the type says what is the size of the variable, but then there is other things as well apart from the size, because this integer and float, both these types, both these two data types, they have the same size. That is, both these data types occupy 4 bytes in memory. Then someone would ask me, as per the previous lecture, since we use different data types, based on the size of the output, right? So why do I have then two data types having the same size? That's an obvious question to ask, isn't it? Why do I have two types of data in my programming language which have the same type? I might not need the other one, right? Because both of them have the same size. This is the reason. This has something to do with the type of the variable itself. Now I will show you what happens now. What is it actually? Yeah, so before that, as I've explained in the previous batch also, so these types, right? So before me coming to what is the difference between integer and float, and why do you need these two variations of the same sized data type, there are two things. There are two types of data types actually. One is the primitive data type. These data types that you see, right, character, int, float, these are primitive data types. Why are they called primitive? Is because these are the data types which the programming language gives you by default. You can use these data types in your program as they are. Compared to primitive data types, there is something called a compound or a derived data type. Derived data type is data types which are derived from this primitive data type. Is this two things clear? Primitive is which comes to you by default from your programming language, and derived is when you create new data types using these smaller primitive data types. Now, why would you want a compound data type? Why can't you just write programs with simple primitive data types? For most of the cases, for most of the programs that you will write in this course, I think primitive data types is enough. But then there might be scenarios where you need compound or derived data types. I will come to that now. So what is the maximum size of a variable in your program? How would you find that out? What is the maximum size of a variable? How do you find out the size of a variable?
Size of and then parentheses.
Yes. So there is a function called size of, right? So I just say size of and I get the size of a variable. So let me say what is the size of X. I'm just going to print this out. See, the size of X is 4. That is, it has 4 bytes. But then is this the best? Is it the biggest type of variable that I can access? Like the biggest primitive variable that I can access? Let me change it to long. That is long int. That is an integer, but a bigger integer. So now let's see what happens in that case. What is the size? See, now that is 8 bytes, right? There is one more primitive data type called double. Let's see what is a double. What is the size of a double? The double is still 8 bytes. You see this at double. I am typing this primitive, these are all primitive data types that I'm using. So let me say, okay, now let me use a long double. What should I expect? Tell me.
16.
Correct. I'm getting a 16. So I think this is the biggest storage space that you can access using a single variable name. That is 16 bytes long. Yeah, so this is 16 bytes wide.
And sir, what about character?
Character is just 1 byte now, 1 byte long.
Sir, and what will decimals also be stored in X if it is long and double together?
Yes, see, when you say long something, right? When you say double, you get a fraction. Let's say it's a data type. Double. I'll come to the data. What does the data type double actually mean? I'll come to that later on. But just like a character or an integer, double is also data type. When you say long something, right? So then the size of that basic data type increases by 2 times. That's it. The same data type will just it will increase by two times. The size of the variable will now go to x.
Okay. And if you use int double?
Int you cannot use now, because int is this data type which you cannot use with a data type. Long is this way in which you could increase the size of a primitive data type, long. But int itself is a primitive data type now. What does this two statement mean? Tell me. It doesn't mean anything. Int double, it doesn't mean anything, right? Because both of them are data types. Long is saying me that give me a data type of long, but which is 2 times the default double size.
Okay.
That's why long double makes sense, but int double does not make sense. No.
Okay.
So we can use long int as well, right?
Yes, we can use long int as well. So if you say if we put it as int, let's see what happens now. See, you get 4 bytes, right? So then let us see if it works for long int as well. So what should I expect for long int?
8.
See.
Yes, sir.
So long is this thing which you can just extend the basic primitive data type size by just 2 times. That's all. But then there's a limit to that. You can always, at max, you can go to 16, not beyond that. But what if you need a storage space which is, let's say, 32 bytes long or 64 bytes wide, and you want to access that storage space using just a single variable name? What is the way to do that? This is the place where the derived data types come into picture. Derived data types. So I will not go into the syntax since we are short on time and you guys have a class at 2. So what happens in a derived data type is there is a syntax. There is a syntax called struct. I am not going to explain what is a struct is properly, but just remember this. There is a syntax called struct, or it's like a language keyword which allows you. Let's not go into the syntax of struct today, which allows you to pack smaller primitive data types inside it. So I could pack multiple data types inside it. And then I can now, once I have done this, now I have created a variable of this type. So I have to name this type. Let's say I have to name it XXX. So now I have created a new data type in my program called this 4x. And then that data type consists of what is the size of the data type? First of all, it is 8, 8, 8, and 8, 32 bytes long. And then I could create variables of this data type going forward. So I could just say struct x, and then I could create a variable name, let's say var. So now what is the type of var? Var is this type now, which has four primitive types located inside it, and the size of var is 32 bytes. If you don't trust me, so let's just type var and see what it does.
Sir, in the first line you wrote 4 x's, but in the second line you wrote only 3.
Yes, yes. There should be one more x, sir.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I have just misspelled the name.
Does it not matter that inside the variable names are all the same?
It matters actually. I'm just trying to be quick. That's all.
So also, like each of those variables is actually a different number, right? I mean, if suppose you want to use a huge number that's outside the range of long int also,
yes,
struct will still not help you, right? Each of those will only hold a part of that number.
So then what you have to do is you have to take that huge number and then break it into, what is the size of the long int? 32 bits. So you have to break it into this small pieces. Each piece will go to one long int. and
Yes,
then
sir.
later on you have to combine these pieces and get the big number.
Okay.
Yeah. So now if I just run this program, you see I will get a 32 bytes. See, I get a 32 byte size. Why? Because I have created a compound data type or a derived data type which is using this 8888, and then I get a 32 byte size data. I do. Let's not go into struct discussions today, otherwise we'll go way out of time. But just remember, this struct is a kind of a derived data type within which you put primitive data types to get a bigger storage space, which you can access using a single variable name. Because now using this name of this variable called var, I am able to address 32 bytes in one go, right? So that is the use of derived data types.
So can we use only long also? Like only long a variable?
I think long by default goes to integers. So if you just use
Yes.
long, it goes to integers, I think. Because only long actually should not make sense because you don't have a data type to follow it with, right? So then
Yes.
if you just do this, I think it will still work. Yeah, it will work, but then yeah, same thing. By default, just long gives you a long integer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a wrong thing actually. I mean, the program should have actually said you cannot just write long. You have to write a data type along with it. So that's
Sir, by default, it gets used as shorthand.
sorry.
Short
If you
form.
have it is used as shorthand. So instead of writing long int, most people actually just write long.
Yeah, so because there is a long double also, so don't get confused. When you just write long, it gives you a long int. Yeah.
Sir, it might be a very simple doubt, but again, doesn't the two semicolons don't the two semicolons make a difference?
That's a syntax error. Yeah.
Sir, could you
Not syntax error.
skip?
Sorry, I could put as many semicolons as possible, but then it doesn't make any difference because there is nothing between the semicolons. No, it will just take it out.
Yes.
Sir, could you repeat what is data type and primitive data type?
See, data type is this data type that we are discussing till now: integer, characters, floats, doubles, right? So these are the basic data types which your programming language or programming environment gives you, and you using these basic data types you could express your programs. But these basic data types have some limitations of size, right? You cannot go beyond a certain size. Let's say, what is the biggest size of a basic data type? It's 16 bytes, as we have seen it. 16 byte means 16 byte means what? You can store that big a number. But then if you have this let's say if you have this need in a program wherein you need a bigger storage space, so for that case you cannot use a primitive. Let's say you want a storage space which is let's say 64 bytes big. So for that you can't use any of the primitive data types, right? Do you agree on this? Whoever was asking me the question, do you agree on this fact?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what should I do in that case? If this thing goes beyond if I need a program variable which is beyond 16 bytes, so for that matter I would want this compound data types. Compound data types are like these data types inside of which you pack smaller primitive data types, and there is no limit to how many data types you can pack in one compound or derived data type. In this example, I have packed in 4 longs, right, inside this data type. So I could as well go ahead and pack 100 longs, and that would make the size of this one data type really big. So this kind of data types which you build using primitive data types are called compound or derived data types.
Okay, sir, got it.
Good. Sir, before you wrote x, 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 why did you change it to x1, x2, x3, x4?
It cannot have the same variable name, right? How can it have? Because later on when you want to, because you will be accessing each of these separately in your program. There is a way to access basically within a compound data type. You could access the primitive data types. So if I name all the primitive data types the same name, how is it going to differentiate which is what? Did you get it?
Yes.
Okay, that's why.
So can we name the variable like data type as a way like struct ABCD, like
anything? You can put your own name. You can put whatever, man. Whatever is your favorite fictional character, maybe.
So the main function of struct is to change the length of the size of the data type. Is that right?
Primarily, yes, but then you could use it for some advanced stuff also, which I don't. Let's not go into that right now. but primarily that is that. And you could get a bigger storage space, because just by referring to this name, right, where I'm able to access this entire 32 bytes, right, in one go. Because
Excuse me,
remember, whenever you use a variable name, you can access the entire location, right, pointed to by that variable.
Excuse me,
So
sir.
in the void main function inside that, so you've written struct xxxx and var.
Yeah.
So does that mean you are assigning that xxxx as one variable which is var, or are you just grouping xxxx together?
No, just read this thing. Just read this entire thing, right? This entire part. Just this entire part means, yeah. Just come. Let's not use a long int. So this part here, struct x, right, and this part here, int. They are both serving the same purpose. You are describing a type here, right? So this is what this two, like this thing is doing here also. The highlighted part. This part is equivalent to the int part here. That is, they are both declaring a variable type. And what is the name of the variable? The name of the variable is this, var in this case and x in this case.
So can we use a long int also?
Just try these things out, man. If it works, then it's fine. But I have given you the basic concept. Now just try to use it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, these small things you can explore. Now it's like a one-line program. So because if I explain this, then we will go out of time. Yeah. Okay, good. So this is clear, right? Compound down derived data types. We are still stuck on the size, by the way. Now let's go into the other aspect of data types. That is the look and feel of the data type now. So now let me say I have a variable type called x. So now this struct is no longer relevant. So let me just comment it out. Yeah, now let me write a fresh program. Okay, so now I have a variable called x and I have declared it as an integer, and I want to store the number 12.5. And now I want to print it out. How do I print it out? Quick response, guys.
X.
Yes. So let's see what happens now if I compile this program. What do I see here?
Integer.
Only the integer.
I see a 12 here, right? So what happened here? What happened here is that 0.5 thing just got dropped. What is the range of an integer? The range of an integer is 32 bytes, 32 bits long, right? Or 4 bytes wide. So that means what is the range of integer? The range of integer is all the way from 0 to 2 power 31 or 2 power 31, 2 minus 1, yeah. Right? So what happens is if you have such a big range of numbers representing integers, then why am I not able to just store this small number, which is 12.5? It is much lesser than the maximum value you can store in an integer, right? So why am I not able to store this 12.5 properly? But what has gone wrong here?
Because integer data type does not allow us to store decimal places. It only allows us to store integers.
For that, we'll have to use float.
Exactly. But you guys, yeah, this is the correct answer. And do you guys know what is the actual reason behind this? Like why doesn't integers allow us to do?
Because of the point, it does not treat the float.
Because floats and doubles are completely differently stored. Like they have to store exponents and everything, but integers don't do that. Integers give every single byte to be storing the actual number. Like for example, if the range is from 0 to 2 raised to power 31, if we also include decimals, the actual range is infinite, because there can be just between 1 to 2 there are an infinite amount of numbers, so we cannot allocate every single bit for decimals as well.
That's a good answer. Yeah. So yeah. So to answer the same thing but in a different way, whatever he was saying, I'll just see these two pictures here. So let's say this is a float data type here, and this is an integer data type below it. So both of them are of same size, right? Both the integer and float. This blue is for float and this is for integer. Yeah, before that, let me just show if I put it as float, it should work. If I put it as float, but then I have to change the format specifier as well. I have to use %f now. See, now it will not work. It will be 12.5 instead of 12, right? So just this change of the data type made the trick, made it to work. But if you look at this picture here, both the data types are of the same size. So what is happening underneath is, so let's say, yeah, since it's a storage area, it's a data type, it will have some number of bits, right? So let's say I just put it as 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. Yeah. So let us say these are the contents. So let's say previously the same space, right? The same space was represented by, because the same space as in it's a 4 bytes wide, right? The size has not changed of this of the locations. The size is still the same. So when it was an integer, when I have declared this entire memory space, there is 4 bytes wide as integer, all the bits were treated as the integer part of the value, integer part. And then the compiler interpreted all the bits stored in the memory location called x as integers, sorry, as this integer part, and it didn't even store the 0.5 part actually here. It only stored the 12 value here when it was a integer. But then when I made it to float, then what happens is it will store these values 12.5, but then now the bits have a different interpretation. For example, some bits from here, let's say these bits, right? Let me just color these bits. So let's say these bits here, the red bits, these bits in a 4 byte float value, these bits would represent the integer part, and the other bits, that is, let's say these are the green bits, so these bits will represent the fractional part, that is the number following the point. So it all depends upon how your compiler interprets those bits. When it was an integer, it will interpret those bits by just reading the integer part. It will just read it will not even look at the it will, first of all, the point number after the point would not even be stored there. Only the number 12 will be stored. That's why the compiler will read those 12 bits, sorry, they read those bits and just give out the number as 12 to you, because the 0.5 is not even stored. But in the floating data type case, in the 4 bytes in the 4-byte memory space, some bits will represent the integer part and these green bits will represent the floating part. And when your compiler reads this value, it knows that it is reading a float value, and that's why it will interpret the bits differently. It will take this first red bits and convert it to the integer part, and then take this green bits and convert it to the fractional part, and then put both of them together and then print it out. Any questions here? So this is like the same storage space, but it is interpreted differently based on the type of the variable. I'm seeing some chats here. Okay, no questions, right, till this point? Okay. Okay, good. So yeah, so floats and integers, same space, but then the interpretation is different. The compiler interprets it differently based on the type of the data. Good.
Sir, why did you change %d to %f?
Yeah, I'll come to that now. But at least the storage thing is clear to you now, right? That the same bits, that bits representing 12.5, some parts of those bits will be for the integer part. In the case, it's a float. And then if it is a integer value, all the bits will be just for the integer part. There will be no bits for the fractional part at all. This point is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now let me come to why did I use a %f instead of a %d. I use the %f is because printf has to know that it is reading a float variable. Why? Because printf will also read the location, right? Whenever you use a variable x, it will simply go to the location. It will read the entire storage space in one go, right? So if you don't provide it %f, let's say if you provide it %d, then let's see what happens. See, you would not, you just see some garbage value here. Why? Because printf reads the storage space and then it will try to interpret it as an integer. But was the bits stored as an integer to start with? The bits were not stored as an integer, right? The bits were stored representing a float value. So that's why it will not be able to interpret it properly, because %d stands for integers. That's why whatever 4 bytes it read, right, based on the name x, it will interpret the 4 bytes as an integer, and then you will get some wrong value. You have to say %f so that whatever 4 bytes it read, starting with because of the name x, those 4 bytes should be interpreted properly as a float value, and that's why the name, that's why you have to use this format specifier. This is called a format specifier called %f. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
So we get some garbage value if we do like this.
Yes, because it read the 4 bytes, but then it is interpreting it differently. Now it's something like you have the telephone numbers, right? So what if I say you say what +91 and then you have the telephone number, isn't it? But what if I tell you, okay, now go and interpret this +91 as also as a part of a telephone number? Is it going to work now in that case?
No.
Yeah, so that's what. I am asking the printf to interpret it as an integer, but then it was stored as a float. That's why I'm getting it getting the output wrong.
Okay.
One last thing, yeah. So yeah. Tell me. Someone had a question.
Sir, what hash include math.h? What is that, sir?
I'll come to that later in the final. Yeah. Let me just put it in comments now. Don't worry about that now.
No, I have a doubt. Yesterday when you were typing out the character as the character equivalent to the ASCII code, you printed out /c. Was it purposely because it wanted to read a character value? Was it done in that way?
%c, not /c. %c.
Yeah, sorry, %c.
Yeah. So see, what did I do now? For float, I use a %f. What did I do for an integer? I use a %d, right? So if I do a %c, that means it will interpret that number, that it will interpret that value that I'm reading from the variable, and then it will interpret it as a character. What character will it be? That character will come from the ASCII chart, right, which I showed you last time. So remember, these percentiles are a way for you to tell printf how to interpret the value we just read from the variable. If I say %d, it will interpret the value as an integer as it is and print it out. If I say %c, it will interpret the value as a character and then print it out, character as per the ASCII chart. If I say %f, then it will interpret it as a float value and print it out for you. So these are like interpreters actually. You are saying printf to interpret the value like this. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so now let's finally just one simple point. I explained it to in the morning batch as well. So I have this red and this green regions, right, in my float. Who decides this, that how many bits in a float should go to the red and how many bits should go to the green? How many bits should be the integer and how many bits should be the fractional part? Who decides this?
ALU?
No. This is decided by committee actually. There is a standard, there is a standards committee, there is a standard called IEEE 754 standard. Just note this down somewhere on a text or on a notebook. It's called IEEE, I followed by 3 E's and then 754. So what does that standard say is, within a float, if you read a float variable from your memory, and if you read, now you're reading all the bytes, right? So within those bytes, how many bits would be allocated for your integer parts and how many would be allocated for your fractional part? That distribution is decided by that standards committee, IEEE 754. And then your compiler has to respect that standard and store the floats in that way, so that when it will read the float back, it will have to decode it. It will have to decode the bits as per that standard and give you the final value, the float value. So you cannot set the size of this integer and fractional parts. That standard does it, and that standard is implemented by your compiler. It's called IEEE 754. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So just read it over Wikipedia. Maybe you'll find more details about it. Fine. Good. So now I have explained in details about the float and integers, right? So now let me do one more thing. Okay. So now again, simple program. So now I have, if you have any questions, you can ask now. I'll come to the limits part now after this. After this example, I'll come to the limits part. So now let's say you have a variable called x and you put it as y, sorry. let's put it at x only. Yeah, 3, and then you have a variable called float called y called x by 2. What should I get, guys? Tell me. What should be the output now?
1.5.
1.5. 1.
1.
So people who says 1, you are correct. So why did it happen? See, I did everything right? I said, okay, I mean, I divided something and I know that division is not going to be, this expression here is not going to give me an integer output. It's going to give me a point something output, right? 1 point something. So that's why I stored it in a float as well. And then in the printf part also, I used, instead of a percentile d, I used a percentile f to print the value of y. But still I am getting the wrong answer. That is, I am not getting the 0.5 part. The reason for this is, now just look at this statement here. Just look at this statement. This
So
highlighted.
because the operation was performed on an integer?
Exactly. Because the performance was because the operation was performed on an integer. And why is it so? And why is it so? Because just look at this statement here. This statement has 3 things here. What are the 3 things? Tell me. What is this part here? Quick, guys. What is this part?
Declaration.
Declaration. What is this operator here?
Assignment operator.
What is this thing here in highlighted?
Initiation.
It's an
Initialization.
expression.
Yes.
Right? So this statement actually has 3 smaller parts to it. Yeah, and remember one more thing, guys. So whenever we will be having all these discussions, I will be spelling some operators also in the discussions. So one of the operators that you saw from the last discussion was this assignment operator, along with the other operators, like for example the plus, minus, into, and divides, which are very obvious operators. You also saw an assignment operator. So just keep a note of the operators as well also in our discussions. Yeah. So now this entire statement has 3 parts: the initialization, the declaration, the assignment operator, and the expression. So these things always get evaluated from right to left. This is the first thing that will have to, this is the first part which will get evaluated. That is the expression. After the expression gets evaluated, the assignment operator will come into picture, and then assignment operator will say, okay, I have a variable called y. Now place this value, whatever you computed, in the variable y. Now when you were, so this statement will be splitted into, let's say, 3 or 4 smaller CPU instructions. When this actual statement goes through your CPU, right, this will be splitted into at least 3 instructions. One instruction would do the calculation for you, that is x by 2. One operation would say maybe take the value and put it to this location, and a third operation would finally do the copying, taking the value and copying it. So my point here is, when this expression was getting evaluated, there is no way for it to know that it is going to a float location, right? Because it is executed independently of that. Only in the later, only in the coming instructions, it will know that acha, jo bhi value, whatever value I calculated, that is going to a float value, float variable. But when this expression was getting evaluated, there is no way for the CPU or for the compiler to know. Not the compiler will know, but the CPU will not know. The CPU will simply execute it. Now the only thing the CPU knows is what is the type of the data it is using this expression on. So what is the type here? Since 2 is the number itself, right? So it will just look at x now. So what is the x? X is integer. So now the CPU says, okay, I am doing a division using 2 integers. So let me just, whatever the result it is, that should also be an integers, because my operands are integers to start with. That's why whenever this expression executes, I always end up getting an integer. There is no way for me to get a float, because both the operands of the operator or all the operands in the expression are integers. Now if I do this small trick, now let me change this to 2.2.0. So when I do this, that means if the CPU executes this now, if they executes this in these 2 operands, now because of this 2.0, the CPU will see there is a float value there in the expression. So since there is a float value, the CPU will treat the output of the entire thing as a float value, because this float will take precedence over, float will have this higher priority over the integer. So by just doing this small change, that is making one of the operands float, the output of the entire expression will be float now. So let's verify that. See, I get a 1.5 now. Because all that I did was I made the CPU understand that in the operator there is an integer and there is a float as well, float operand. So it's better you make the output of make the entire output float. Why? It could have still made it integer, right? So why it made float? Because float takes precedence over integer in terms of these computations. So if you have one float variable, the entire thing will come out as float.
Sir, but before also it showed 1.00, so no, sir.
Yeah, even
And
I have that doubt.
that is because I have used the percentile f now. That's why. If I use
Okay,
a
sir.
percentile f on an integer also, it will say 0.00, but that 0.00 means nothing actually. There will always be 0. Let me show you this. If I use x, let's say, so what should I have used instead of x? I should have, sorry, for x I should have used a d, right?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? But then if I choose to use f, remember the interpretation, guys, interpretation. Now printf will interpret x as a float variable, right? It will read the integer part, but there is nothing in the fractional part, right? So that's why it will print all zeros. See, that will, okay, it's printing 0 as well. Yeah, I think it has interpreted x also differently.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so that's why you should never mix what is the variable type and what is it that you are asking printf to interpret it as. If you mix this, then you will get some different outputs which you're not expecting. So always use the same format specifier or the same the interpreter for that type of the variable that you are using on the right. That's
So-
why percentile f does not work with x, because x is an integer. Yeah.
So if you for output, if you in printf instead of x you put y, but you said percentile d, so would we get an integer or would we get an error?
Let me see. You will not get an error, you will get some random thing, because remember the interpretation has gone wrong now, because y was stored something like this, right, with some red and green bits, but then printf
Yes.
will read all the bits as one number and then your things will go wrong. You get this
Oh.
random garbage
Okay.
value, right? Yeah, so
Got
that's
it,
why you should never mix.
So, but if we use percentile f with an integer, it can just print that integer and 0.000.
It should have actually, logically it should have, but now it's not doing that now. It's just printing everything as 0. I think it's not able to recognize the like the bits properly. See, it is printing everything as 0.00. It's not even reading though that bits properly. I think somehow the bits have got lost actually, because when I see percentile f and then when I give it an integer location, that means it is trying to look at this red and green bits, right, to decipher it, to decode the bits. But then since it does not find any division between red and green bits, fractional and integer part, and that's how it gives you an 0 or an unpredictable value.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, good. So this is clear, right? So then one more thing that I can do is instead of doing this 2.0, let me just make x say float now. So what will happen in this case? Remember, 1 has to be float for the entire expression to be a float. So now what will happen with the
Now
output?
it's work, right?
1.5.
Yeah, the same thing.
1.5.
Exactly, now same thing, because now you have made one of them floats and now the entire thing is also float. If you make both of them float, very good, then it will be, the entire thing will be a float. Yeah, so these are some trick questions actually, which are very much present in the objective type questions of this kind of courses, programming courses. Yeah, so you get it right. Even if I make both of them as float, I'll get the result as float. At least one has to be float for it to work as float. If both of them are integers, then it will be seen as an integer. Fine. Okay, so we have seen floats and integers. Now let's see, there is one more data type called double. So why do you need double? So let's look at that now. So let's say I have a big number which is very big on the point side, on the fractional side. So let me say I have, okay, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. How many 1 2 3s are there? Can someone count and tell me? One, two,
Seven,
three,
sir.
four,
Seven.
five,
Seven.
six, seven. Okay. Now let me try to print y. See, there is another thing that you can do with percentile f. You can say how many decimal places you want it to be printed on the output. That is, this is to tell this, you just say point and then you say that number. Let's say I want to print out 32. I want to print out my value, right? The floating point value to 32 decimal places. So that's where you have to say 0.32f. If I don't do this, then by default, I think, let's see what happens by default.
6 decimal places.
I think, okay, I have not used a semicolon somewhere. Oh, why am I getting an error here? Okay, why is undeclared? Sorry. I have to declare it as y. Yeah. So let's see what happens by default. By default, I think it goes up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 6 decimal places. Right? So by default, a percentile f will print 6 decimal places. Now let's say I want to see the entire range of the numbers. I want to see all this entire range. So this range will surely fall on the 32. So let's see what happens. See, now if I do this, tell me till what decimal place did I get my answer correct?
6, sir.
7.
7.
We got it till 7, right? See, the last one is also there now, 1. So that means, what is the precision of a float? The float can represent data correctly up to, the decimal data correctly up, not decimal, the fractional data correctly up to 7 decimal places. Because after that, everything goes wrong, right? After this one here, you are not seeing these numbers now. You are seeing something else. That means there is a limit to the precision of float. And why is there a limit is because, remember, float is just represented like this, right? So there is only a limited set of green bits, right, that you have. So you cannot represent the entire thing. As someone was telling that there can be infinite number of this thing, right, between 0 and 1. So then there has to be some limit, right, beyond which you cannot represent, you cannot go. There has to be limit to the precision. That's what the limit is. It's limited to 7 decimal places. Yeah.
Sir, you have typed percentile dot 32f. Instead of that, if you type 31f, will we get the answer up to 31 decimal places?
Yes, if you say, let's say if you get 100, let's do 100f. See, that point percentile is just saying on the output how many decimal places displayed, but then actual number is only this now. The actual number ends here only.
Yes, sir.
This does not, that point, that does not mean precision. That is just saying how many to put on the print.
That's it. Never.
Yeah, you got the answer, right?
Sir.
Okay, good. Some discussions are going on. What is it like, but even higher? Can you speak up, Rahul? Because I'm not reading the chats right now.
No, sir. I was answering to somebody else. Sorry.
Okay, fine, good. So now that's a problem, right? Let's say I have a program which needs more than 7 decimal places of precision. Just for that simple reason,
Sir, I had a question.
Yes, tell me.
If we write a float, so it will be correct to only 7 decimal places.
Correct. 7, only 7.
For any decimal number.
For any decimal number, you cannot go beyond 7. As per my compiler, as per my system, it's 7. It may change for you, but then you have to try this out. How it changes. But in most of the cases, it's either 6 or 7. It's between that. It cannot be less than, or it can be more than that in most cases. Yeah.
Sir, so when we printed it, like let's say for 100 decimal places, when we printed it, so after 7 decimal places, there were a bunch of random numbers.
Yes.
And after that, zeros started coming in. Why were the random numbers there?
The random number, yeah.
Why couldn't all of them just be 0? Like after 7 digits, all of them could just be 0. Like
That's a very good question, actually. So what was happening is, I think in this interpretation, right? So this green bits, you agree on this fact, right? That these green bits are what is giving me that number after the point, isn't it?
yes, sir.
So what might have happened is, to represent that number, these green bits have to be in certain form. How do you represent 0.25? Tell me in binary. You know there is a logic to represent 0.5 in binary, right? 0.5.
Yeah.
See what is 2 in binary? 2 is 1 0, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
2 is 1 0 because 0 is for 1 and then 1 is for 2 power 1. So it's like 2 stands for 1 0. 1 0 stands for 2, sorry. But if you go in the other direction, if you want to say represent half in binary, half would be, I will tell you, half would be, I think, 0 1. Because so have you done this in school? How do you represent this one, fractional numbers in binary?
Yes, sir. We can't represent all the numbers, right?
Exactly, that's the answer here. You cannot represent all the numbers in binary. If you have a number, let's say half, then you can represent it nicely, because you could say 0 1. 0 is for 1. So it's something like this. So you cannot represent everything in binary, all these precisions nicely in binary. Representing something in binary from the fractional part is a bit it's not that easy as compared to the integer part. So that's why maybe this number that I have, right, this number, it could not be exactly represented as binary, exactly represented in binary. So what happens is, up till some point all the numbers will be fine, but then whatever random things you are getting, right, that is the error by which you missed that number. Did you get my answer? See, up till some point, because of the precision error, your number will look correct. But after some point, let's say if someone asks you to give your percentile, right? How do you say? You say 99 point this, and then after that some random numbers you say, right? Because after that, after those numbers, your computer is not able to represent that number properly because of this binary with fractional part, and those extra numbers are coming off because of that error in representation.
Okay.
It's a more involved discussion, but let's not go there. Otherwise, it will take a lot of time.
Okay. Sir.
But at least you got the feel, right? What I was trying to explain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is what it is. So now, if I just change the float, so now if I change the float to double, so what happens? So two things happen. First of all, from the hardware side, what happens? From the hardware side, what happens is this entire block here, right? This entire block goes by 2 size now. Now it becomes a double, right? So then this entire thing, it doubles up. Sorry, I have used 1 2 1. Sorry. So this entire thing just doubles up. Now you have more number of bits representing fractional part, integer part, and more number of bits represent the fractional part. So since there are more number of bits represent the fractional part, its precision has gone. Its precision will increase now. So let's verify that. So now if I do the same thing now using a double, so what happens is, sorry, you see, right? You see this whatever numbers I had, it got represented correctly, I think.
Up to 14 places.
Up to 14 places. Yeah, after that again it cannot represent. So then why is it double? Because it's double the precision of float. Float mein it was 7, and this double mein now it is 14. So that is all the story about float and double. If you want higher precision values to be stored as output of the expression, then you have to use double instead of floats. Because double has 14 value digit ka precision and float has 7 digit ka precision.
Sir, I have a doubt. Like, how are you typing the comments? Without typing it, they're appearing. Like, you can change them.
What
how
command?
are you changing? Like VI space
upper arrow. Upper arrow.
Up arrow. Up.
Okay.
This is all going in the history now, so I just say up, and then I can see the previous commands. Okay, so this is clear, right, on float and double for everyone, guys, right? When I say everyone, I am asking people who are very new to programming. I'm asking those people.
Sir, can I know how you are inserting some wordings? For me, it was not enabling insert option.
Insert is escape and then I. Yes. You have to press escape and then I.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Okay.
So my doubt is, you said that double increases the accuracy of the float, right? So is it because we typed y as a float number, like does it automatically recognize that this is a float number?
Can you come again? The clock interrupted me. Yeah, tell me. Come again.
No, you said that doubles the accuracy of float. So like, does it recognize it as a float number because we typed the number as a float number?
No, see, it's not like doubles the accuracy of float. It's fine, but then don't view float as a data type. What I'm saying is doubles the accuracy of those that fractional numbers that you have in your program. It has nothing to do with the float. Float is a data type.
Right.
You can store your fractional part in that data type. You have two options to store fractional numbers. Either you use double or use float. In float, you can store the fractional part with some precision. In double, you can store that fractional part with some other precision.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happens in this case? Double has twice the precision of the float.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, don't confuse between this. Float is just float is a data type, and then I am talking about float as in the numbers. I mean, this you can also say these are fractional numbers, not float. Yeah. Don't confuse between these two things.
So if we use a long double, then will we get up till 28 decimals?
Good. Let's see. You have to count it, guys. I don't want to count it. Oh, what happened? Oh, long double. I think I have to use. I don't know. I may have to use some other interpreter for long double format specifiers. Yeah, I think there is an issue with long double. Even though long double is a type, but can you guys search on the internet and tell me what is the specifier I need to print long doubles?
Sir, in this there are not 28. Sir, in the number there is no 28 places, so it will not print.
The L is capital.
Sir, it is
percent
yeah.
capital LF. Capital
LF. Is it? LF.
Only
F
L is
F
capital.
is small and L is capital.
Okay, let me see. Good. See, now let us see what happens. Is the precision same?
17, sir.
17, is it?
No, sir. The precision is same.
14, sir.
14.
I think it did not change. Because why? Because I think how can we verify that it has not changed? Why it has not changed? Let us see the size of both the things now. Let us have a variable of type double.
So maybe more of the space has been allotted to the part before the integral part of the.
I know. So that's an assumption, right? So let us settle this once and for all. So I want to print the size of both of this. I want to print the size of long double as well as double.
So can I know how you are exiting?
Sir, and Z also we need to
see
assign.
For VI you can just Google search, man. I mean, why are you asking me? Just go escape colon and Q. Escape colon Q or escape colon WQ. WQ will save and exit, and Q will just exit. Yeah, people who are with VI, can you help him out? Like you can ask a VI doubts on the chat and someone will reply. Yeah.
Sir, you wrote printf. You wrote print instead of printf.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's a typo.
And Z should also be assigned the value, sir.
No, I just want to know the size of the variable. Now, why do you have to?
Yes.
Okay, it's 16 and 8. I think the size is big. Yeah, as someone was mentioning. So I think the integer part got a bigger size of it, bigger percentage. Fractional part, I think it stayed just like that only. The size of the fractional part. Clearly,
yes.
The size of the long double is 16 bytes and size of size of the double is 8 bytes. But then what might have happened is this green, I think this green stayed as it is, and then the red part increased. So that's why the precision did not change, because if the size is bigger and if the fractional size is bigger, the precision should have changed.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in what how is float better than double? Like, why do we have float if double is better in precision?
Yes, that's a good question. See, let me come to that now. Double has how many bytes? 8 bytes, right?
Yeah.
Float has how many bytes? 4 bytes. When you are executing on instructions on the CPU using either an integer, so you could have expressions on integer. You could have instructions on integer, floats, or doubles, right? You could add 2 floats, you could add 2 integers, or you could add 2 doubles. Now remember the ALU discussion we had in the very first class?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, the addition happens. Where does it happen? It happens inside the ALU, right? Now inside the ALU there is there's a chip to add. There is a logic to add. And inside the addition logic, there are three different small blocks actually. One block will do the integer addition, one block will do the float addition, and another block will maybe do the double addition. So there are three different circuits inside a single addition circuit inside your ALU, which will do this, which will do the operations on different data types. So what happens in case of doubles and floats is the CPU has to go through this conversion. That is, it cannot just take the bits and add them up, like because you cannot take this number and convert it to binary and operate, right? Just like you do with integers. Do you agree on this fact?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Because these numbers have some bits represent the integer part, some part represent the fractional part. So the first step the CPU has to do is it has to take the bits and then make the number out of it and then do the operations. That means it's a more involved process. If the integer addition takes, let's say, some delay in the CPU, the float will take more delay. Since double is double the size of the float, double will take even more delay. So that's why there is a float and a double. When you don't need double, you should use float because that will speed up your computations. If you use double, then the CPU has to spend more effort in unpacking the number and getting a value out of it to do the computation. So that's why there is a float and a double separately.
Sir, and also the memory is wasted in that case, right? If the smaller
memory
numbers
is
are
always the case now because 8 bytes versus 4 bytes. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Good. Okay, so now I have explained you integer. So I have explained you 4 data types. I have explained you integer. I am just writing it in the comments. Integer, character, float, and then finally double. So these are the most basic data types which you will always be working with in most of the programs you write in the course. Character, I told you already in the first class. It's just 1 byte long data where you can store numbers. They go from 0 to 255. And then you could get a character equivalent of those numbers by using %C in the printf. Integer is for integers and float and double are things that I just explained.
Sir?
Okay.
I had a question. In C, does there exist a string data type?
There does not.
So we have to use arrays only for string manipulation.
Yeah. There's no other way. C++ has string data types, but see,
like even in C++, we were taught only to use arrays. I mean, it was very complicated using strings, I think.
See, string is a derived data type, you could say. Because C is not a string. What can you say about string? String is built up of characters, right?
Yeah.
So then string is made up of, again, smaller primitive data types called characters. So then you could actually say string is a derived data type.
But C doesn't support it, right?
No, doesn't support it, yeah. Because the C++ is a big library. C++ has this big IO stream and then all those libraries, right? So those one of the data types is string is inbuilt into one of those libraries, which you can directly use.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good. So now let's switch gears. So we are done with the variable part actually, declarations. Then I told you type, storage, and then floats and doubles. So let's do the final discussion for today's class. Yeah. So now let's come back to the very basic variable discussions that you have. So int y, 2, int z, 3, printf, %d. Okay. So now this program will give me an output on these variables, right? On the computations I did using the variables. Now, if I want to use the same expression, but for different set of numbers, what do I do now?
Can you repeat the question?
If I want to do the same computation, right? But I want to use a different set of numbers instead of 4, 2, and 3. What do I do?
Change the values of the variables.
Exactly. Change the value of the variables. Okay, let's say I want to repeat this computation, let's say many times in my program, but with different set of variables. What do I have to do? I have to copy paste the same lines again and again, right? I have to copy paste these lines, right? Every time I have to change the variables, the contents of the variables to a new value for them to evaluate the expression. So is this a good way of doing this? No, right?
No.
So what is the most efficient way or a better way to do this?
Loop.
You should
That's one way to loop, but then you don't know the values right up front. So even in the loop, you have to explicitly write the values.
It should ask for the violation.
Yeah, it should ask for the value. And whom should it ask? It should ask the user. So this is where another important function which I will share with you guys today comes in. So this function is called scanf. It is the counterpart of printf. So scanf allows you. So what was the basic functionality of printf? Printf was an output function, right? Printf outputted whatever things were there in these quotes, right? Between these quotes to your output device, which is your monitor, which is your terminal. Scanf will do the exact opposite. Scanf will take input from your basic input device, which is the keyboard, and then provide that input to the program. That's the use of scanf, exactly opposite of printf. Printf puts it on the monitor and scanf reads your input from the keyboard. So let me just show you the syntax of scanf first. Okay, so before doing that, I want to introduce to one more operator which you would encounter in scanf. This is called the ampersand operator or the AND operator, which I generally use it as. So now let me say AND x and x. How do you access the data located in a variable? How do you access the data? You just say the variable name and you get the data from the location, right, which the variable is pointing. But then let's say if I want to know what is the location in your RAM on which this particular variable is located, where is that? Remember the shelf thing that we spoke about? On which shelf on your memory is this variable located? How do I know that? That is, I am asking for the address of this variable. So that I can know by using the ampersand operator along with the variable name. So the moment I do this, right, but the moment I say and then I give the variable on the right hand side, I will get the shelf number. That is, I will get the location number from where this variable starts. If this variable is 4 bytes long, I will get the address of the first byte, and then that will go all the way up to the 4th byte. So this is what this AND operator gives me. It gives me the address of the variable. So now let me print the address. See, the address will be a very big integer, very, very big integer. So that's why I have to use LD. LD stands for where we want to print big integers. I am not using LD for the value of the variable because the value is just 4, right? So I don't have to use LD. So if I print this, let's see what I get. So this big value here, right? This big value is if you look at your RAM, and if you picture all the slots, this is the slot number from which your variable starts, and then it will occupy 4 bytes starting from that slot. This is the slot number or the address of the variable. Now if I run it again, see, I am getting different numbers. Why am I getting different numbers in every run? Tell me.
Every time it runs, it stores 4 bytes.
Location, yeah.
Yes.
Location gets same.
Exactly, because your loader is loading your executable in a different location now. It doesn't have to load in the same location always. That's why your variable will get different addresses every time. See?
Sir, and is the memory location always an integer value?
Ask this to yourself. Can it be a float value?
Okay, yes, no, sir.
Just think physically, man. If you have a shelf, can you have half a shelf? You'll have the full shelf, right? Always.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that's why memory locations are always integers. Yes, one question came up in the previous batch is like, why are the starting values same? Almost the starting values are same always. You see these are 140, 140, 140. Can anyone guess why is the starting value same of the addresses always, even if I run it like 100 times?
Because that is a really huge power of 10. That's such a huge number, because now the smaller powers are changing because some operations are being done or something. So like for example, like if a program loaded, it might change 10 KB, 10 MB, but it won't be changing in gigabytes of memory.
Exactly.
Right?
You got it. Remember, I showed you a RAM picture in which I showed you there was some user space, some kernel space, right? So then that user space is the big space, right? So that's why the first things will not change, because your program has to be loaded within that space only, na? But on the final values will start to change, because now you go in, now you create smaller spaces within the bigger space, And then that's why in the end things, because in the end values you get these things changed, because the starting thing will be the same, right?
Sir?
You have one big home, that home stays as it is, but then when you go inside the home, you go into individual rooms. So these last numbers are those individual rooms. Yeah,
So
tell
does
me.
that mean that to this program a certain area of the RAM is allocated at all times? Like even if I say quit the program,
I think so. No, yeah, even if you quit the
stuck at
program,
the
yeah.
1.4. Huh?
Correctly, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe within that area it gets loaded someplace different, but then some space is gets reserved for this, like permanently. Maybe not permanently, sorry. Maybe if you switch off your computer and start it again, maybe it will change after that. But at least for this run that we are having, it's there. It's the same.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I had a computer problem. I had a network problem. So can you repeat why the address number is changing every time we run it?
Just this part, right? Address you got now.
Hmm.
Yeah. So why is this number changing every time? Because how is your program getting executed? When I say a.out, your loader is taking your exe, loading it in the memory and asking the CPU to execute the instructions, right? So every time when I do a /a.out, your loader does not have to place it in the same space of your RAM. It might load it in a different space, but not entirely different. It has to load that program inside a big area in maybe in some other smaller area, but then that big area remains the same. That's why when you run it again and again, the starting values remains the same. It's something like I ask your program to run inside India, right? You don't go out of India. That's why your country address remains the same, na? But then you could, again, your state address would also remains the same maybe. So maybe this part represents the country and this part represents the state. But then within a state, you could go to different districts and then you could place you could go and you could relocate there. So the last parts represent your district. So every time you run your new program, your country, your state remains the same as inside the RAM, but then your district changes, as in your location is in that part of the location changes.
So
yeah,
until the loader loads a new memory into the slots, will they be occupied by these existing ones?
Yes.
Until something new is loaded into them.
Yes, I think so. It does not clean off exactly. I think so these things will be there, and so if someone loads it, then these things will be wiped off, and then the new contents will be replaced on top of that. Okay, so yeah, so this is what the address means. And then finally, so let's say now let's go to scanf. So this is the operator, remember guys. So this operator gives you the address of a variable, any variable, float, in double, it doesn't matter. You just say the variable name and it will give you in RAM which location it went to, which location was it assigned to. Okay, so now why did I explain this operator? Because I need that operator inside my scanf. Now just look at this. So let's say I want to print the value of x and y using printf. How do I print the value of x and y using printf? Quick guys. I do this, right? Percentile and x and y, right? So when I do this, just look at this instruction, just look at the printf statement here. So you take the value of x and then you map it to the output here on the first D. You take the value of y, you map it to the next percentile D. Someone is on unmute. Can you guys mute? Harsha. Be very careful, guys, when you are on mute or unmute, because this disturbs me on as well as the rest of the class. Yeah. Okay. See, when I'm doing this printf, I see x and y. I say x and y and then percentile D. So this first x gets mapped to percentile D and the first y gets mapped to the second percentile D. And when I print it out, I see 4 and 2. That's it. Now, if I want to take input from the user now, right? And then I want to store it in x and y. So how will it behave? I will show you. So now let's say I have so now let's say I have used percentile D, and then instead of x and y, I have to say and x and y. So what will happen in this case is whatever input I am typing, that input will be stored here now. In this printf case, the flow was from right to left. That is, you get the value of x and put it on D. You get the value of y and put it on D and get it printed out. In scanf, whatever value you typed from the keyboard, it comes in D, and from D it goes to this location here, and x. Again, whatever you type, it comes to this D, percentile D, and then the second value that you type, it comes to this D, and then it gets transformed from D to at this location, that is Y. Why do you have to pass the address in scanf is because I have to know to which location I have to write, right? If I just use the name instead of, if I don't use an and, I would just have the value that is there in the variable. There is no way for me to access the slot, right? I want to access the slot and put the value I received from the keyboard into that slot. That's why I need the slot address, not the value that is not the value that is located in the slot. I need the slot address. That's why I have to use an and for scanf. The flow is exactly opposite to printf. Printf mein the flow is read the data and map it to %d, and then in scanf take the input from the keyboard or take the input from the user and map it to the variables, that is the address of these addresses which are there on the right hand side. Is this distinction clear between scanf and printf? The exact the flow, how is it working out?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So now if you run my program, this is how it will look like. If I see frozen.c and if I run, then it will stop. See, not stop as in it is freezed. It is asking for the user to enter some input. So now I say I input two variables 12 and 34. See now, and I printed the values now 12 and 34. They got printed together because I didn't give any space between I didn't give any space here. Yeah. See, I say 12 and 34, 23, and see, I get 12 and 23 as output. So in the first case in scanf, I read, tell
Even
me.
for scanf, there is no space between between %Ds, right?
Yes, scanf kind of scan. Yeah, that's a very good question. So let's say I do this and then I say 12 and I say give a lot of spaces and say 45. Still, I'm reading the values properly, right? So scanf, what it does is scanf does a very good thing actually here. So what are you asking scanf to do? You are asking scanf to read two integers, right? Two integers.
Okay, so it waits till it finds the next
Yeah,
one.
So just think of your okay, wait. So just think of, so now this is my input, right? Input. It has seen one integer, right? So now let me paint many spaces. Has it seen one more integer yet?
No.
It has not. Now it will see one more integer, right? And then when I say again space, and when I say enter, when I press enter on my keyboard, what happens is the scanf will print whatever you have entered through your keyboard, and from that it will pick up two integers and return.
Sir, if we type a decimal like 45.5, what will happen?
I think it won't take it correctly. Let's
Sir,
see.
if we only type 12, then will 1 and 2 come as separate?
Let's see. That's a good question. Let's first answer his question. 45.5. See, I say 45 because you are taking integer, right? So that 0.5 gets removed.
Yes.
So now, as someone was asking, let's say 1 2 1 2.
It will wait.
It will wait actually. It's still waiting.
So.
Yeah, not 12.
But this won't be true for characters, right? Because even a blank space is considered a character.
Let us see that. Now let us try to read characters now. So how should I read characters? Int C, right? Sorry, character. Let's declare two variable, character variable C1 and character variable C2. Okay. So now if I want to read characters from my keyboard, what do I do? %C and %C and C1 and C2, isn't it? And then following that, I want to print what characters let me print the number equivalent of the characters. I'll get to know what I inputted. Okay, let me just enter some characters. See, you got it right, what I'm trying to say. I just entered two characters. Let's say 1 and 2. They are also characters, right? Did you get me what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir. It takes only 1 byte.
Yeah, and then when I say enter, it will read 1 and 2. Like character for 1 is like the ASCII for 1 is 14 and ASCII for 2 is 50. That's why it will print it like that.
So that'll be true even for integers, but we have to reach the sufficient size, I think.
Yes, you have to read like the 2 or 3 values and then it will come it as an integer.
So can you try only one character, as in just Q
and space?
Yeah,
so it takes
because
up
it will
space.
take the enter also as a space will also as a character. Okay, good. So I think you guys have a class at 2, but this scanf is clear, right? How you use scanf?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You have to say what kind of input you want to read, and then you have to say the addresses of the variables on the right, so that those values go to those addresses, which you can later use in the program. Okay, finally, guys, give me 5 minutes and I'll finish it. Don't worry. So let me finally write a program which I started, which I also ended the last session in. How hurry are you guys in right now? You can give me 5 minutes, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Just wait, don't worry. I mean, you have half an hour. I'll just take 5 minutes to type this. So then the program that I'm asking you to write is, I will say you have this many kgs of rice. That will be an input from the user. And I would say you have a bag, and each bag can hold, let's say, 2 kgs of rice. Then how many bags would you want to store all the rice that you have? Right? So then what is the first thing that I have to do? The program is, I'll give you a certain quantity of rice, and then I will say, I'll tell you a certain size of a bag, and I would ask you how many bags you would require to store that much quantity of rice. So what's the first step, guys? What should I do first time? Tell me.
First declare
Declare
two variables like number of rice
kg
and rice capacity or something.
Bag.
Rice bag.
Okay, and then what is the first thing after that? I have to say enter.
So first enter, like directly we can scan
So
if we can use.
let's put it let's use printf in some place. Enter the rice kg and bag size, right?
So we are just making it like more user friendly for printf.
Yes, that's what we are doing. And then you say scanf percentile d, and then you say and rice kg rice bag, right? So this is where you got your input from the keyboard. Now what to
So
do?
you forgot the ampersand there.
Sorry. You guys are following the lecture good. So now what should I do? Tell me quickly. What do I need? We need one more variable,
we need to
right?
check that it's divisible, right? Or
yes. I'll come to that now. Let's not worry about divisibility, but let's say it divides evenly. Yeah.
Then we should for getting the number of rice bags.
kg by rice bag.
Yes.
And finally,
this will give wrong result, right?
It will give wrong result if they don't divide evenly. I agree.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Yeah.
And like is where we store that variable, is it?
Sorry.
Like you said, and
yes, and is the location of the variable in the memory.
Right.
Yeah. So let me say 12, 120, and 12. So it divides evenly. We are good. 10. Right. This is what we got. We ran the program and we got this. So all the things that we learned till date, we have used that. We have used scanf, we have used printf, we have used variable, we have used the type of the variable. Sorry, we have used the type of the variable, and we have used an expression. Now, if it divides evenly, we are good, right? We got the correct answer, right? Let's say 140 and 10 gives me 14. We are good. What if it doesn't give me? Yeah. First of all, do I have to change any type of the variable here to make the program correct?
Yes, sir. We can make bags float.
So we can just
we don't need to change anything.
Multiply 1.0.
We can just check if they're not divisible, then bags plus else, but we can't use.
That's a good thing. Yeah. If we are not using if else, right? We are not using if else. So let's say what happens if you give something which does not divide 123 and 12. Let's say what do you get? 10. That means how many kgs are we still left with? 3 kgs, right?
3 kgs, yeah.
3 kgs. So where do you put the 3 kgs? So clearly this is not doing good for us.
So we can do one thing.
But we need an upper. We need a ceiling.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We can do rice kg plus bag size -1.
Okay.
We should
You want to
replace.
say +1 minus. You want to say this?
No, sir. Rice kg we add it to bag size -1, the numerator.
Okay. Plus bag size -1. Is it?
So the numerator only, the numerator I'm talking about. We add bag size -1 to rice kg, the numerator.
This one?
Yes, sir. Here plus, yeah. Bag size -1. Rice bag -1.
-1. This one, right?
Yes.
Let's see. Okay, we got 11. That's fine. That's a good trick to do. But yeah, for people who didn't understand this, and so this is one good logic, very good logic actually. But there is another way to do this, simple way. Can I explain the simpler way? So there is a function called ceiling function. Just remember this. So ceiling function will give you the ceiling of a division operation.
So, but you need to include math.h.
Yes, that's why I had the math.h at the very beginning. Yeah, so now if I run this, see, now I get 123 and 12. I get, sorry. Yeah, what is wrong? Quickly tell me, guys.
Integer division.
Something wrong. Yeah, exactly. Whoever was telling the integer division, I
Pointers.
would give him a chocolate. Yeah, good. So what happened was, remember, when this entire thing expression now, this entire expression, this entire statement here, it has a lot of smaller pieces inside it. What is the first piece? The first piece is this variable declaration. Second piece, the assignment operator. Third piece is the function itself. The fourth piece is this part, right? This expression. So now when this expression is executing, it doesn't know in what context it is executing, right? Because there is a lot of things that is going inside. So the first thing that will happen is the expression will get evaluated. And both the variables inside the expression are of integer type. That's why the return type will also be of integer, right? The output from this expression only will be of integer types. So whatever you do a ceiling on an integer, you'll get the same integer, right? There's no point. So what should I do? Quickly tell me to make this work. I have to change one of the, exactly. I have to make one of these variables in this expression a float. So let me do that. How do I do that?
Add float.
Yeah, so let me make the rice bag as float, or sorry, the rice kg as float maybe. So let's say I keep it as integer.
So like we can do rice kg plus 0.1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's try those things also, but first let's make this a float. But to read a float, what should you use here?
Percentile
F, right?
Percentile F.
And also float bags.
Yeah, so black will also be a float now, yes. And
So
then
back
this,
there doesn't need to be floats, right? Because ultimately ceiling will return we will need integer only.
yeah, but then ceiling has to take a float and then convert it to integer, right? But if it is already getting a truncated integer, then there is
No, I was talking about bags. I was talking about the last bags variable.
okay, fine, yeah, it can be, yeah, that's good.
So
Yeah.
you said that it evaluates from the right side. So first the calculation part will return an integer.
No,
Yes.
it will
And
return
then-
a float. In this case, it will return a float now because I have declared it as a
Sir,
float, right?
Sir, after applying the ceiling function, it returns an integer and assigns it to the bags,
To
which
bags,
can
yes.
be integer.
Correct. So now let me just run this and see what happens. 123 and 12. See, I get what happened here.
I think seal
Oh,
might
I
have
have
float value.
I have is a percentile f now for bags is an integer, right?
Okay.
So I get 11 now. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that ends today's lecture, guys. Sharp at 1:33. So anything else? People who wants to leave can leave now. I'll just stop the recording.
Sir, could you explain it